Welcome, everybody, to the I Know Nothing podcast. Today, we have on one of my favorite humans in the world, Sammy Joe Tracy. Sammy, I'm assuming most humans know who you are, but we need you to explain a little elevator pitch of who you are, but also why someone should listen to you. Most of the people on here are athletes and coaches. So I leave the floor to you.
Hi, everyone. Matt June is my favorite trainer, so I'm honored to be on his podcast. And you've known me since the beginning of my career, but I am from Westchester, New York. I went to the university in North Carolina, where I was lucky to win two national championships. And the first one, I scored the winning goal, and then I got to really make an impact in 2016 as my second championship. From there, I coached college. I coached at Arizona State University and Harvard. I am a professional athlete, and that's my full-time job now. And lastly, I'm a New Balance athlete. So um, when I started playing lacrosse, lacrosse was not a career. You could not play professionally. And luckily, it's all I do now. And I get to meet people like Matt and do crazy workouts and travel the world. So super excited to be on this podcast.
So, everybody, if that resume doesn't say enough, you should listen to what Sammy has to say. Um, I want to kind of obviously I know a lot about your career as an athlete, but I don't think everybody does, and I don't even know if I know where you started as an athlete. So, like, can you give us where you started from your like? I guess let's take middle school. What sports did you play other than lacrosse, if there was other ones? And then when did you start kind of honing in only on lacrosse?
So I started with, I think I've actually played everything under the sun. If you want to really date back, my parents were very into me doing everything, which I think is super important to my athleticism now. Um, like when you're young, like I did dancing, gymnastics, swimming was a huge one, and soccer. And then ultimately it got narrowed down to volleyball and lacrosse. Volleyball, I took extremely seriously, and I picked that up in middle school, and then played club for downstate, which is the club team that's like an hour away. They kind of made the decision for me when I started getting into ninth and 10th grade, where you decide kind of where you're going to go and what you're going to do. Volleyball was the one that says you have to choose, not lacrosse.
Yeah.
And that summer, I made the US under 19 team for lacrosse. So I was leaning more towards lacrosse at that point. But my dream was to play both. But I am shorter, and I was lucky enough to play volleyball with a bunch of girls who ended up all playing D1, but me, just did a different sport.
I didn't even realize that about volleyball. I knew you played it. I didn't realize that you were that serious about it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
go ahead.
it's like volleyball is, you'll realize, and I think it's important that different clubs and different teams from different sports are all treated differently. And volleyball, we all travel. We were like a junior Olympic team. So we traveled all together. We slept in the same room, the teams, and um, it was kind of like a full-time job. I tried to do it as much as I could, and I even became a practice player after the decision was made for me to play lacrosse because I didn't want to let my team down. But lacrosse, for my lacrosse athletes out there, you travel with your parents. You don't sleep with your teammates as much. So I think that's kind of interesting. And just being on both sides, I don't know how it is for like basketball or swimming, but for volleyball, everything was team dinner oriented, like four girls in a room. And I think that was special and important for my experience and going into college.
I definitely want to come back to that team aspect because it's something that I've watched again and again where I think overall we're losing the team aspect from a youth sport, on. But I want to go before you get to college. So you started basically playing just lacrosse early on in high school. Can you just take us through? Because I know from what you've told me how much effort you put into honing in your skill and your craft of lacrosse. Like when you started to just play only lacrosse, Take us through what you were doing every day, all the way up through high school, before college.
So I started only playing lacrosse probably junior year after I committed. And I had a specific niche. I guess being passionate about something is really important. And then with the game of lacrosse, I knew my passion was stick work and the draw. From a very early age, I think a lot of draw positions come later in college specifically, but for me, I was obsessed with it. And it's cool to be obsessed. Um, my mom actually found a girl who was the best. She was a tort hunt finalist, Kristen Gelman. She's living in New York City working for Nike, and she was the draw, like the best draw girl at the time. And my mom sent me on the train. I don't know if for people in Westchester that's normal. We take the train in. I met her at Central Park, and I only focused on stick skills. And it was cool to have someone that I looked up to. Like she was everything I wanted to embody and more. Like though I loved the way she looked, the way she dressed, like she was interested in fashion like me. And then also she was passionate about the draw. So I think it's important to find people outside of like your realm of family and everything that have similar interests. And so that was where I really started focusing on the draw and becoming a draw specialist. And with being a draw specialist, that helped me with my stick skills. And I think being undersized, I'm not the fastest. And I mean, I'm not slow, but I'm not the fastest and I'm not the strongest. I think that was what got me on the field my freshman year.
How much time did you spend? Like, obviously, you worked with her, but how much time were you spending on your own working on your stick skills in high school?
So I mean, I spent time going into New York City to work with Kristen Gelman, and I'm really lucky that my dad played lacrosse. So after practice, so with school, I struggled, and it's important that you stayed after. So I spent a ton of time at school. I went to school early, and then after school, I went to after school help straight into lacrosse practice. And then after lacrosse practice, my dad gets home late. He met me at the turf, and we usually did a couple, like an hour or so after practice of him feeding me balls, working on dodging. And that was like a place for me to have fun. So I didn't think of it honestly when people asked, "What'd you do to train?" It like wasn't training to me. Like it was spending time with my dad, and I enjoyed doing it. So I think that's a huge difference. Like I didn't go out and train. My dad met me after work, and it's like what we did to bond, and then I was also getting better.
I mean, that's pretty awesome that your dad did that and you have that. I don't think many people actually have that.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I was pushing into that question is because I work, I work with high school and college kids all the time. I'm like, well, what are you
Mm-hmm.
doing to get better? And I like the way you said that, where it's always like, oh, you got to go do your training, your special training. And that's, I mean, you see it in lacrosse world too, but everything is like, oh, we got to do this regimented training and nobody's just having fun and enjoying the game. And that, that play or, whether it's your dad or your friends, I think that's something that's being missed right now. And I think a lot of kids, it becomes so regimented that their sport is their job rather than staying after practice and enjoying playing the lacrosse or whatever your sport is. So it's a good point for everyone to understand. Okay, in terms of training, because this is a strength podcast,
Yeah.
did you do any weightlifting in high school or any speed training, anything like that?
That's how I met Nick. That's
Oh,
how
in high
we,
school?
in high school I met Nick
Oh,
and Nick Serio, and then that's how I met Matt through Athletes Warehouse. And he was also in the beginning of his stage of his career in the strength and conditioning world, and he was a CrossFit trainer. And so we did CrossFit,
okay.
and um, we've definitely evolved. But when you find amazing trainers like Nick and you, they see the true like what's inside of me, and I'll never forget this because what he said was truth. When I go to train, it's a place for me to go dark. Like when that's why I love training with you. I step into Athletes Warehouse and or with you, and I'm not thinking about anything but going hard, blindly hard. And that's why sometimes I'm not like, and there's all different types of athletes, but that's why I can't pay attention to how many reps and what I'm doing because I'm going as hard as I can each rep without counting. He said I was going to have an injury because of that. I needed to learn how to like hone in, like when to go hard, when to not, because I was going 110% so much to the point where like I didn't know if I was going to hurt myself or not, which I did. So, and hence why I went right back to him when I was back in New York, because I was like, I'm now honing on to my professional career and I don't want to get hurt again. So, it was, you guys understand who I am as a person and a player and help me stay. And I haven't, I mean, I'm still playing. So, knock on everything. I haven't had an injury since. So, my college career. So,
I definitely want to get into your college career, but while we're on the topic of training, obviously the reason we met was because of Nick, was because of Athletes Warehouse, and we started training together. I don't know how many years ago it was now. It feels like it was way too long
I
ago,
think it's
but
like 7 or 8.
which is wild, and it sucks honestly because I think
Yeah.
we always, you and I have stayed in touch over the course of time, and I sent Sammy a picture of her first outline I ever wrote. Remember when I sent it to you the other day?
Yeah.
So it was, I don't know when it was. I know the date was in June, but I don't know the year because I didn't date it. And in this, I had outlined because I had trained pros before, but I never trained a pro women's lacrosse player. I didn't know you at all, other than Nick was like, "Hey, you're taking Sammy now." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I had all of this stuff, and one of the things I wrote was like, "She cannot get injured." But I was trying to, if you remember the first couple sessions, I was trying to like give you this special advance. We got to do all this sexy stuff. And I remember was one of the most aha moments of my life. You were just like, listen, like I'm not counting reps. I like it's good stuff. She's like, but you told me like, but I just need you to like train me to be the best version of a lacrosse player. And I was like, I'm not even looking at Sammy right now. I was just trying to make this special thing for a pro athlete. And that's when I let my guard down to be like, okay, let me just like show Sammy who I am as a human. We started to like learn each other early
Train
on.
together.
We did. And then, what happened was, and it's the first time I ever did it in my career, whereas you and I, when we train, I'm not coaching you. I'm working out with you the entire time. And I don't know if you want to like go off on anything that in terms of like our training specifically. I have a couple notes that I'll question you on, but from I guess from your lens, what was it like? Because you've trained with a lot of people, you've trained with some of the best, and in terms of our training, even though it was brief, I think it was pretty good.
I think I'll never be as physically fit, honestly, as I was when I worked with you. And I think that was like, you got the hardest version of me because I was fresh out of college and a little, still have my rebellion phase in me. So I think, well, one, it was so unique to train with a trainer. And I love being put in my place a little bit and physically. And it just, I mean, I know some trainers hard to do that, but for you, like you set the bar so high, and just me trying to keep up pushed me to another level, which is where I needed to be. So I think that was unique and different. And then, to be honest, your workouts are, if when I go back to whatever, I'm on the road or um I'm with honestly like traveling for clinics, I do camps and clinics with other professional athletes, like your workouts are the ones I whip out. Always. They're my favorite. They are it's hard to describe because we don't use a ton of weight. We don't do anything super unique, but I'm always sore the next day. Like it's I don't know how to explain it. And it always progresses like, okay, I'm gonna dominate. And I push it's all I'm gonna go really hard. And then because I'm like, oh, this feels easy. And then the easy turns really hard, really
Yeah.
fast. It's like, so we do like the 3 blocks. I don't know if you write it, that I might be different, but like this end of the second block and the beginning of the third is where I want to die. And that's where I mentally have to like hone in and push myself, especially when I'm alone, because I used to lean on you a ton.
Yeah. And I can only speak from like the way that I was thinking about going into each day. A lot of the times I think it worked out for you and I because I think you and I are very similar in the way we like to train. So I understood, okay, I know what she wants to feel. Although I've never played at the level you played at, I know the way I like to feel as an athlete, especially when I train. And I think we we meshed in that way where I was training you as if I was training my own self to be the best athlete that I could be at the time. And what we're forgetting is the whole other piece of it. So we worked hard and we were working on things. Like we were still specifically working on some past injuries that you had. We wanted to make sure those flare-ups didn't happen. We wanted to make sure that you could push, but just enough so that we could come back the next day, even though you were sore, and train again. But we also played lacrosse against each other every
Yeah.
day, which
Yes.
I still have the boxing mitts here where I don't even remember how it even manifested at the time, but you were like, I need you to play defense on me. And I'm like, wait,
Because
I
you're
play
hitting
D.
me in the face. That's
Oh,
why.
that's right. I attempted it once with a lacrosse stick.
Whack. Because I mean, you never played lacrosse, really. So it
Yes,
was like when you wanted me to get low, you wanted me to drive my shoulder, and then it was pop. I mean, my dad does that to me too when he does still do stuff, which is rare, but it is really hard, and we're so sweaty. It just that's what I think where the pads came in. So you didn't totally
that's right.
knock my
That's
socks off.
right. That's right. That's why they came in. So essentially our workouts became 2 hours because we trained for like an hour, took a 2 minute break, and
Mm-hmm.
then we played one on one. And this was, you know, I deal with women's lacrosse now still, and it's so funny when I'm like playing defense against one of them, like they just don't understand. But everything I know about playing defense is from what you taught me. Remember, every day you were like, no, this is what the dodges look like. This is what you're thinking about. And as much as I was trying to teach you about training, you were teaching me about how to train a lacrosse player. Um, can you talk about that side of things? Because again, I was more so trying to give you what you needed as a defender, but what were you getting out of having someone to play against every day?
I think that was the key to my success, and that was probably one of my best professional seasons ever. I think what in women's lacrosse, you don't have a team all the time. It's just a hot 2 months, go hard. But the rest of the year, it's really hard to find somebody to play against. And playing against you definitely keeps my mind sharp with the way you position your body. And I think you're so quick getting to the like being that quick defender, getting to the spot. I have to make a decision. And I think like us working every day on me making decisions as an athlete is so important. I think a lot of times trainers put cones in, put and say do this, and your mind shuts off, right? And I do that all the time. But when we went, so we did do that till that next hour, and then we played one on ones. It was all about using my tools and then making decisions with it. And I think that is also the biggest difference, the decision making piece as your body's going full speed. And I think that's where a lot of girls do get hurt and tear their ACLs and because they're not making decisions. They're going as hard as they can. A defender makes a stop and then they don't know how to stop themselves. So I think that was so important for me to not have an injury and to work on which dodges to use when I feel the pads versus front versus back versus straight on, like letting me put my shoulder in versus when I need to pop out, gain space, and reattack. Those are all stuff I don't think you find in I mean, you definitely don't find in every gym. And I think that was the difference.
Yeah, and again, listen, from that moment on when we were training, I've really yet to be able to utilize that. And even when I'm trying to help coaches, like when they're trying to do agility or they're trying to work on dodging or if it's cutting, no matter the sport, it's all very similar. When they throw the cones out, I'm like, you're not understanding. And I completely agree with you. We trained 100%. And honestly, some days we probably went maybe a little bit too far, but you were prepared for the game where, during the game, you were like, no, I've been doing this every week. This is no
Mm-hmm.
big deal. And I find it hard to believe that anybody is really training that way, especially in your world where I'm sure some women just don't have access to having someone play defense, and we were just lucky in that current situation that we had.
It was
Um,
so unique.
very, very unique. I mean, I still talk about it all the time. I listened to the song that we listened to every single time, Dead Beats, Volume 8.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where I don't think remember we just like people just don't understand. They don't understand the music. People would walk
No.
into Beats warehouse and it's just me and you on the turf listening to EDM
Wrong, wrong. Yeah.
and beating the crap out of each other. But I think,
Psychos. I go.
Yes. Um, what have you been doing as of late? Because like you said, this was, I actually don't know. Was it 2019, 2018? When was the last time? Okay, so 5 years ago was the last time we actually trained together, even though you did come up and visit. What
Yeah.
we had two sessions together. Um, what have you been doing just like as a pro athlete right now in terms of the training wise? How have you been training?
I when I was in Boston, I did have a great trainer, and but it did take me to some time to find somebody that was like. Luckily, I had you, and I knew what was successful and what really like because there's a lot of different people who teach different things, which is fine. But with my body specifically and how I train as a lacrosse player, I've never had the same result as I did with you. And I knew that going in. So in Boston, I had a trainer who wanted to do more heavy late weight lifting. And my season struggled for it because I wasn't as fast and as explosive. Um, and it just then I've moved to another trainer, and his name is Kevin. He's awesome. We did less weights, a lot more jumping. I think jumping is, and we did a lot of jumping too. And sleds, lighter weight, and then sleds to run. Um, and things are more just like less weight and more aggressive movements that we use like on the field. So I've been working with a trainer, but I'm one of the I would say the more fit women in my league because of how I train, how I dedicate my time to it versus other girls who have to do everything kind of on their own.
Yeah, and you've been doing it for a long time too. And I think people forget that where, you know, especially at your level where people have already the women have already played college and all these other things where if you don't have a background in training, you can't just hop into what we were doing. You can't just hop
Yeah.
into lifting and it will affect you probably negatively. You know, at the point in your career now, like you said, you know what works best for your body. You got to make sure that you're fast, you're explosive, but most importantly, you can do what you need to do on the field. And I think that gets lost a lot of the times. I don't know what you saw at the college level. You know, so many people who have played at the high level in multiple sports. I'm sure you talk training with them, and I'm not going to keep dwelling on the training piece of it. It's just the world that I live in where I'm watching training become over consumed. We think it's the only
Mhm.
thing. I'm like, go look at the training that you and I did. If someone walked in, like you said, it wasn't sexy. It was very, very basic. It had a point. And if you remember, we always were testing stuff too. So like we would test the sprints and you'd be like, why am I down today? I'm like, I don't know, but we're definitely not doing any more legs because you need to be fresh. And I think that's something that people need to be thinking about when training athletes at any level, especially at your level though.
Yeah. But we had open communication. And I think a lot of kids might be afraid to say that because they don't want to seem like they're not trying hard. Like your trainer, because I'm also a coach too, will know when you're giving it 110% and your body is just not with you. And then sometimes your body is there and your mind isn't. And it's okay like to tell your trainer, because I feel like that's what I was like, my sleep was crap. I ate like I did not eat well today, and this is how I'm feeling. And luckily, you understood me and knew like I come here to work every day, and did a training off of how I felt because sometimes it's not okay to push yourself 110 when your body hasn't been rested and you're not eating right and you're mentally off. There's other ways to train that can help you have the same result in the long run.
I want to keep talking about training, but you still have such a great career that I want people to like. I want you to talk about maybe just some things. You're a two-time national champion. You went to one of the best schools in the entire world. Can you talk about at least like the lacrosse, the team, the national championship, all of the good stuff that you went through and you got to see and you've learned from from UNC?
I thought so. My dad played at Maryland, and I thought that's where I was going to go. And I went with my heart and chose something different that was more specific and personal to me. I grew up differently than my dad, and to me, I wanted to win Carolina's first ever national championship, which I luckily was able to do. Um, and I owe it to my grade, and I think my best friend is the coach of Carolina, and she tells me all about kind of the change in college sports with, you know, sponsorships and things like that. And I think to me, what made my experience so successful is I grew with the group, and we bookended. We won my freshman and my senior year, and almost all of us played because we grew together. We had highs and lows together. And like my career definitely looks like what you said, sexy. Like I scored the winning goal as a freshman. I started as a freshman, but my sophomore year I redshirted and had a horrible year. And I feel like a lot of people nowadays, when they have such a down year, want to leave. And I definitely had that urge, but I stuck it out. I had a different role on the team as someone on the sideline. And I think that ultimately helped me become a great leader in the end of my career because I knew what it was like to be on the bench and work through something that I had no control over, and then have like such an amazing supportive group around me to help me get back, and not only get back to where I was, but to be even better. And I was able to become a two-time All-American because of it. But I would not be there by myself. It's all about the people you surround yourself with and what they're doing and how they're doing things to create that product on the field.
Yeah. I've had several of our college athletes, most of which play at a high level D1 currently, and listening to you talk about how you stuck it out compared to what's going on right now, it's it's more normal for someone to transfer than it is to stay right now.
Yep.
I mean, I know you have friends who coach, but like, can you touch on that at all? And honestly, I'm curious your thoughts because for me, I'm a team person, and like it seems as though the world of sports is changing so much, and that's bleeding into our society, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. No, I mean, I could talk about this all day.
Yeah,
Um, because I think I am where I am, and I'm the person, most importantly, who I am, and a mentor because of the experience I had with my peers.
right.
And I've lost by one in a national championship, and I've won. Um, and I don't knock people who've transferred. My brother transferred before NIL, and it was the right thing for him. It changed his life for the better. So I never want to say that that's the wrong thing. There's always a different, scenarios are different, but you, it's, you should really try to stick it out. Like pushing through hard times is a time for you to look in the mirror and look at yourself and what does the team need right now? What can you do for your team? Um, is like for me, like, right, I was one of the stars and now I'm on the bench. What does my team need me to do as I sit here on the bench? Do they need me to cheer? Do they need me to do the right thing off the field? Like, those are things that you need to look at. And then what I know it's tough, but when you're on the other side and then you're fighting for a spot and you earn that spot, it's so much more. You have your peers look at you differently. They are grateful and they look up to you. Whereas when you just leave because it's hard and get a starting spot because you're at a team that's not as good maybe, or need someone that's like you have to start, and you're a new puzzle piece in a different culture. And team culture is so important, and it's so hard to create right now with people coming and going.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would not want to be a college athlete right now. I would not want to have to go through the recruiting process. And again, though, I think, and I know, I mean, you deal with so much youth, you deal with so much college,
Mm-hmm.
you deal with all of it, but I'm watching it change at the youth level where, and I'm sure it's similar to you, but like a lot of my best friends were my teammates,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not happening anymore. Even at the youth level, it's the same thing. Oh, I don't like my coach, or I had a little adversity. I'm just going to go play on this team. And that is a very, very dangerous thing, I think, for sports in general, but overall, like in life, like you're saying, it could have been so easy for you to just say, oh, I'm hurt, I'm redshirting, bye bye. I'm going to go here and be a star here. You stuck it out, and look what happened, and look where you're at today. I have to imagine the way you are as a person has been being built all of this time, but you weren't built in that type of thought process where it's like, oh yeah, it's okay. Adversity, go quit.
I think so for me growing up, the club team that was accessible to me was in New Jersey. And I think now I just taking Westchester is where I'm from, right? And now they have 3 or 4 club teams that are 30 minutes away. So
Mm-hmm.
if times get hard or a coach you don't like you will always find a coach you don't like and a teammate you don't like. I learned that at a very young age. And there are reasons why girls are mean, and there are reasons why coaches don't like you, and it could be within themselves, or and there's also trainers that you don't vibe with, like, but learning how to work with them and work through it and get to the other side it's a life skill that is never going to go away. Like running into, and then because then that coach, that teammate who are negative become your boss. And if you can't run and hide, like that's your job now. You got to work through it and you got to find a common goal. And that's why sports are so special, finding the common goal to get whatever you need or together. And it's just, you need to practice that and you need to work through that. And I just think a lot of times everything is right here at your fingertips. Oh, I can just jump. It doesn't cost me anything. It doesn't do anything, but in the long run, it does. It's not, it's, you don't feel it, but in the end, when way down the line, it is going to make a difference. So you just got to know where, like, that escape that you want to, that you need, because its times are hard. It's just a matter of time till you reach something very similar like that. And you can't keep running from it. You got to learn how to accept it, work with it. And that's going to be honestly the key. Like, is it the key to life?
I don't know. You're just dropping fire right now, so I'm letting
Oh,
you go. We already got our 10-minute countdown, which I knew was.
no.
I know. So I have a couple ones that I want to ask you, because we've been getting a little more like parents watching, coaching watching, and kids watching. Not that this is an epic podcast. I'm doing this podcast because I'm just trying to educate everybody, athletes, coaches, everything. And I think everything you've got to the highest level that you can in your sport. I think everyone should be listening to what you're saying, because you've done it and you still do it on a daily basis. So, with that being said, I ask you first, if you're talking to a group of young athletes like yourself, what are some pieces of advice that you have for young lacrosse players, women lacrosse players?
Man, that is so hard. Um,
Putting you on the spot.
I would just say you don't train ever if you're like, training isn't training. Like, I don't know how to, I want to say this so poetically, but I don't know if I can. I showed up and worked with you, and I never trained a day in my life. It was so much fun, and I was hanging out with my friend and pushing myself because it felt good. It's just like you don't work a day in your life if you love it. So if you love it and you're passionate about it, you're never training. You're just having fun and doing what you love. So make sure that that's the feeling you have inside, because that's when you know you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think sometimes that gets lost, where knowing you've loved this game for a very long time. I think kids right now just don't love their sport, and I think that's partly a lot of the issues. And I'm not going to go into it too much, but I think that's it. I agree with you. Like, you gotta love what you do. I love that I get to walk into a weight room every day. This is not work for me. Okay, this is the harder one. Maybe it's easier for you. Advice to the parents of those lacrosse players.
I deal with a lot of parents too.
I know, that's why I'm asking you.
um, Being a parent is so hard, and you know now better than me.
Mm-hmm.
There's no right answer, but tough love is important right now, and tough love is being lost.
Mm.
And do it like, you sometimes your kid isn't always right. So and your coach isn't always right. So just go with your gut, and less is more.
I love it. You are being poetic. I like this.
Well, that's
Okay,
because I did walking lunges in the Stairmaster before I talked to you, so my brain would go because that's what you told me would make
everybody
my.
out there, see Sammy Joe does walking lunges, so everyone can stop hating me for it. Okay,
Oh no, like I would make everyone drink the Kool-Aid,
that's
do
right.
walking lunges.
That's right. Do your walking lunges. Okay. We have exactly 4 minutes.
Ah,
These are two things that I didn't tell you about. So I stole this from another podcast, but I think it's really cool. The first one is a rant. Any rant that can be about lacrosse, life. Let's stay away from politics, but any rant that you're currently on right now.
rant. Um, I've been on the road, so I'm like,
You're always on the road, Sammy.
I, I, I have 1 week. What is a rant? Um,
It could be anything. It could be ranting
this
on
this is
like
such a girly rant. Me and my girlfriends are I like stop online shopping.
perfect. No,
Such
that's a
a
good one for everybody.
like it's so easy to send cool outfits and whatever, and I think that's like our like oasis away from lacrosse. And it's just stop online shopping, give it a break, give your parents a break, give your boyfriend a break, give your husband whatever or girlfriend. That is the problem I have. So that's I keep ranting like I'm gonna stop, and I'm not. So no, I'm working on it, but that's my
Good.
own.
Okay, this one should be easier. Something that you're raving on. Same thing. Could be about anything. A rave that you're on right now.
um okay, so I've always been obsessed with cottage cheese, and now I feel like I'm so on trend, but and I was before trend, but I'm a lazy eater, as you know, and cottage cheese is a great way to fill me up and a high in protein post workout. I think because I sweat so much, I crave it.
I love
Um,
cottage cheese.
but like everyone's like, oh, you're doing the like whatever cottage cheese. I'm like, I've been doing cottage cheese since like I got it from my mom is very good on that. But so I'm like, I always rave about cottage cheese. And now that I'm home and settled and into my day and a half into my routine, I'm back raving about my cottage cheese.
I love it. The moral of the
So
story is do walking lunges and eat cottage cheese.
eat high protein. Eat high protein.
Yes, I'm clipping that and sending it to everybody. Sammy Joe says eat high protein.
Walking lunges and high protein. See, I just don't live to eat, so it's like hard. This is so gross, but I don't care. Hard boiled eggs, protein shakes, and this is gross, but I love not tuna in a can because that's high in mercury. Salmon in a can, and I
Wow.
dip it and cottage. That's all I eat, and pickles. That's literally
Love it.
my diet. I don't know if we need to have our own talk because I go to
Yeah,
you for
maybe me and you can get on a phone call after this.
I'm like, people don't know if I call Matt. I'm like, I'm not sleeping. Um, I'm at a hotel and I'm tired, but I want to work out. And then, please help me. This is my diet. Times it's worse. This is what it is right now. And I'm like, please help fix all these things while you're millions of miles away.
Hey, we still get it done. And I mean, for me, the fact that we get to still stay in touch is awesome. I definitely miss seeing you, miss training you. We're less than a minute already, 40 minutes.
Ah,
But thank you. Appreciate you coming on. I think you dropped a lot of good knowledge, and I hope people appreciate you taking the time to talk.
and thank you for everything in just life. And when you have a great trainer, there's just nothing like it, especially as an athlete. They're not just like your trainer, they're your friend and to me, your family. So thank you so much for all that you do. And it's great to do master meeting of the minds together. So I feel honored to be on your podcast.
I love it. I hope I get to see you soon. We're gonna
Yes.
end it
We
there.
always find a way.
Always find a way. Thanks everybody for listening. Sammy, miss you.
Miss you. Bye.
Bye.